The number one buyer of stocks since 2009 has been on a rampage. Can you guess who it is? You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. In today's video, we're going to talk about the stock market, who's buying, who's selling, so you know exactly what's going on. Follow the money, right? Well, let's begin by taking a look at this. This is the bubbles of the past, and we can see things that go crazy. I never like to see anything going up in a straight line. It always concerns me because it usually comes down the other way aggressively, in many cases, even more aggressively than it came up. We want to see a slow and steady rise. We want to make it seem like it's paint drying. But of course, things are not like that. We get hype, we get speculation, we get all the craziness happening. And you could see some examples of this in the past, whether it was that meteoric rise of Bitcoin, where it was on everyone's radar. People who never heard of Bitcoin in their life were telling me, what's this Bitcoin thing? What's going on with Bitcoin? That was a big concern for me because people who never knew anything about it, never bought it, never did anything with it, they were getting it on their radar. So I knew that there was speculation was in, and that was a problem. It was right when it got past 60,000, big concern, okay? We don't want to see that. If you love Bitcoin, you shouldn't want to see that either. You should want to see it just slowly going under the radar, nobody noticing. What about what's happening with previously the FANG stocks, now the AI craze, and of course the Magnificent Seven, which is kind of changed at the time of this recording. We have seen these bubbles before. Is it sustainable? Well, we start to break that down, and of course there are big concerns today. Look how crazy this is. The top 10 biggest single day market cap gains. You can see Meta, previously known as Facebook, going crazy. $205 billion increase in their market cap in one trading session. Think about how ridiculous that is. $200 billion. That alone is bigger than most companies that exist. And they added that to their market cap in one day? Whoa! Now, of course, okay, we're going to do a dividend. Mark Zuckerberg is going to get $700 million a year. That's so fantastic. On the same day, on that same day, or maybe the day before it was, they were talking about the problems with all the CEOs. They were grilling all the CEOs in Congress. They were saying, you are responsible for all these crimes that are happening. You're bad, you're bad, you're bad. Mark Zuckerberg had to get up there and apologize. And then the guy goes and he gets a $700 million pay bonus because of the dividends. That's what's going on right now. There's a very big difference in between the facade that you're seeing out there and the reality. These stocks are going through the roof. Meta is planning a huge buyback. Here are the biggest of all time. So they are doing some massive buybacks right now. I'll show you the difference here between theirs of 50 billion and Apple's, which are just crazy. In that example, in 2018, $100 billion, but many of these mass buybacks. And guess what? Who is the biggest buyer of stocks since 2009? The number one biggest buyer of stocks. Have you got it yet? Okay, we'll talk about that. World's largest sovereign wealth fund posts a record $213 billion of profit, boosted by what? Tech stocks. That's right. So Norway's giant sovereign wealth fund, loving those tech stocks. They never really sold off of their tech stocks. They were more and more as the years went on. They were becoming more heavily invested. No different than what the Swiss National Bank, the Central Bank of Switzerland, was doing. They operate like it's like a hedge fund in this case here. They did the same thing. We want to overemphasize US tech stocks, and as a result, they've done very well. Of course, they did extremely bad when the markets were coming down, but it was short-lived. And now as a result, when you take it over, a few year period, they're still up significantly. So that's where this is. They're loving tech and they won't give it up. At least it doesn't seem like that anytime soon. The growth is there and the hype is right behind it. So here we have a big difference though, because we have the S&P 500, which of course includes a lot of different stocks. So we get a good variety there. But compare it to what you'll see with the retail. Retail is a big issue. When I look at this broadly, I start to think to myself, retail stocks have not performed anywhere near where the broad index has. When you see what's going on with tech stocks, though, in terms of their actual companies, they're not really performing extremely well in terms of, when we look at the job situation. A lot of them are laying people off. What does that tell you about the resilience of these companies? Not the stocks, the companies. Well, it's not all, rainbows and flowers and unicorns, is it? Maybe a few unicorns, different kind of unicorn. By clients, corporate clients led inflows, and institutional clients led outflows. Do you see something here? A little tidbit there. We'll talk about that in a second. Institutional, they've been selling. They've been selling last week and 4-week average. They have been net sellers. The institutions, the hedge funds, the pension funds, they are selling off. That doesn't mean that they're selling everything off. It just means that overall they've done a lot more selling recently. Who's buying? Overwhelmingly, massively. The last week and the 4-week average. Corporates. Who's corporates? Let me talk about that in a second. You can see the chart on the right, which basically just breaks that all down if you're interested. Here we have it. Buybacks. Stock buybacks are at a historical high right now. So who's the biggest buyer of stocks? More than we've ever seen in history? It's the Apples. It's the Facebooks. It's the, all these companies that I just showed you. They are the ones that have been buying the most stocks. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that wild? At a time in which borrowing, because before they were doing a lot of borrowing, they're still doing it, by the way. A lot of borrowing in order to do the buyback. Now it's more expensive to do that, but they're still doing it. Now, in doing this at this record level, they push their stock prices up. This is very beneficial for the stock itself. There's no question about it. For the insiders, more so. The insiders are loving this. I'll show you one big insider in just a second. You could find, by the way, any insider on what they're doing. This is something that you could find. I have it on my channel. I have a video that breaks it down, how to find out which insiders are buying and selling. If you go to the playlists section on my channel and just look, it says something like how to find out where the insiders like Jeff Bezos are buying and selling, something like this. Looking at this, when I see it, it tells us that they believe the stock will be higher in the future as opposed to now. Because if they didn't, they would wait. They would reserve the capital, they would wait. So the company itself believes now is the right time to be buying. The hedge funds, the pension funds, are trying to trim, probably, okay, we're good now. We made a lot of money on this rise up. Let's take some of that off the top. That's what they're saying. And here it is. Bezos discloses plan to sell up to 50 million Amazon shares as stock surges. So he is going to sell off. Normally he sells $1 billion a year, very typical. He takes that, he puts it into his company, Blue Origin. Okay, look, if you're rich, what do? You set up a spaceship company and light all that money on fire, apparently, because most of it, I think, is just going up and being burnt up. But anyway, that is 8.6, I believe it says in here, $8.6 billion worth. So it is much, much more than we've seen. So what's he doing with that? Why wouldn't he want to keep it in Amazon? I think he's got too much in Amazon. I think that's very clear. He doesn't want to sell it all at once. And he lets everybody know, like many others, will let everybody know in advance so that the stock is like, oh no, we're freaking out, this is happening. Insiders, when they start selling, it is something to note. It is a big concern. I don't know why he's selling like, $1 billion here and there. For him, it's not a big deal. 8.6, something to note, something to watch. So I'm going to keep an eye on that, and we'll look for that in the next little while. So you could see what's going on with institutional investors. They've been trimming off the top. The stock buybacks are the number one reason right now why stocks have risen, in addition, of course, to the euphoria and all of the excitement around artificial intelligence and so on. It has been a select few stocks that have been pulling the market up. You've got Microsoft, you've got Nvidia, you've got, to some degree, we've had Apple and Amazon and all these other companies that have done well overall. That's where we're at today. Where we are going to be at in the next little while, if interest rates start to get cut this year, who knows? Things could go even crazier. What are your thoughts on this? This is something that I break down each and every week on the Friday live sessions. This is what we talk about. The Friday live session we just had, I spent over 2 hours. It was 2 hours and 20 minutes, I think. 2 hours and 20 minutes breaking down how to look at any investment from a 30,000-foot view, come down each and every step of the way. If that's something that interests you, well then, click the link in the description under the live section, themoneygps.com/live, and I hope that you would join me there. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button on the way out. When you do that, it notifies the algorithm. That's some good stuff. And of course, I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.